Pues, bienvenidos a un episodio más de Reventándonos Podcast, un podcast donde invitamos a personas que se están enfrentando a un cambio organizacional o bien nos están dando herramientas para reinventarnos hoy para el futuro. Pues hoy tenemos pues aquí una conexión de hace mucho tiempo que nos conocemos, pero finalmente nos conocemos con Sam Spurlin, que él es miembro de Ready, que es una de nuestras consultoras modelo que nos encanta y que apreciamos y admiramos todo lo que han hecho por la consultoría y el mundo del trabajo en general. Entonces, welcome to the show, Sam. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited for our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. And as you do, guys, we're gonna start with a checking round. So,
All right, cool. I'm ready. It's just nice that I don't have to come up with the question for a change.
yeah, yeah, and you are expert in check-ins,
Sure.
and I don't know if you can share with us what is the best check-in you have made so far.
So my favorite check-in question is it's kind of an absurd one. So I don't use it for like the first time I'm meeting a team or anything. But if I've been working with
Okay.
a team for a while and we know each other and they're comfortable with the idea of the check-in round, I will use the check-in question of what is the best bird? And everybody, because it's a weird question, right? What do you mean best bird? And everybody has all these sorts of clarifying questions. And I always just say, hey, you heard the question. What's the best bird? And then you get all sorts of fun answers. And I don't know, for some reason, that check-in question always tickles me.
Wow. And
People discover they have opinions about what the best bird is, which is usually something that nobody has ever really thought about.
and which is your best there for you.
And you know what? I kind of always change my answer kind of based on my feeling. I really find this like I think it's called a spoonbill,
Oh,
a
okay.
very prehistoric looking bird with a giant beak. I think it's the best bird. But I've used pigeon in the past. I think I've
Okay.
said a bald eagle because, I'm American, so I had to.
Yeah.
There's lots of different correct answers.
Nice.
What's your answer to that check-in question?
I don't know if a mockingbird or a
Okay.
cardinal.
Okay.
Depends. But my younger sister lives in Missouri, so she always showed me the cardinals outside
Yep.
in her yard. So
Yep.
I always
Nice.
like kind of love that bird.
Cool. It's a beautiful bird.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And well, I'm probably and my bed checking I think is the one that I do with my students. It's more like an icebreaker, and they
Hmm.
kind of not imagine if there's a series of questions, and my students kind of surprised if I ask them if they prefer like Billie Eilish or Dua Lipa and that stuff, and they say, okay, this guy, yeah, okay. I prefer the Lipa with the music, but
I
but
don't know that I have an answer to that check-in question. I'm very unhip and know very little about both of those
well, I mean, at the end, the check-in rounds, and thank you for always being loyal to that. Is an amazing way to know each other, and to get an
people.
authentic icebreaker for many people.
Yeah, it's such a easy and small thing. And of course, you sometimes have folks who kind of roll their eyes at it or think that it's not important. But
Mhm.
it is one of those habits that if a team adopts and they just do it every time, they don't think about it too much. We always do a check-in, and sometimes they're serious, sometimes they're absurd, sometimes they're just the default question of what has your attention right now. It is
Mhm.
a really nice way to kind of ease into a meeting, get everybody's voice in the room immediately, and learn a little bit about each other along the way.
Yeah, I deeply agree, and also it's a tradition that we also took, yeah, at Polymath too, and we
Cool.
love it, and our
Yeah.
clients and people love it too.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
getting to the ready or
Mhm.
is well, many of our audience knows the ready, and you're
Okay.
famous in many
Oh
ways, and also
gosh.
in Latin, for good or for bad, because no, for good. And you were I think the first employee of the Ready?
Yeah, yeah, I was back in September of 2015, so coming
Oh,
up on 10 years here,
lovely,
very soon.
lovely, lovely. And we always talk about changing the way we work, but I don't know how it's to work at the Ready and how is, the if it's different or it's different for the consultancy that we used to see out there. So if you can share with your perspective.
Yeah, the way we work at the Ready has always evolved over time
Mm,
too, from when we first started back in 2015 to where we are now with about 30 or 20. I never know what the actual number is without going and
mm,
like
mm,
going to our website and counting everybody's faces. But I think like upper 20s of folks now. And I think the main thing for us is that we're a self-managing organization. So if you're familiar with sociocracy or holacracy, we take a lot of inspiration from those ways of thinking about organizations and sharing power.
mm,
So we really try to take that the principles around those pretty seriously, which means that we don't have traditional managers in any way, and that we really try to take this idea of invitation and kind of non-coercion really seriously
mm,
around like how do we build teams to do the client work. So that's what is kind of most it kind of describes what it's like to work at the Ready the most. And then as far as like the actual kind of delivering client work, it looks kind of depends on the size of the project, but it ranges from 2 or 3 people fully dedicated, fully committed to just one client for a long period of time,
mm,
to more kind of standalone workshop experiences, or going to plan a retreat for an organization. And then there's some that are just these kind of amorphous advisory projects where it's 1 or 2 folks just kind of available on different sorts of cadences with leaders or teams to help them
mm.
work on something really specific. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and well, there's many. Well, in Latam, I think with the holacracy movement and the sales management, there's like some. Sometimes it's not that frequently as we would love it,
Mhm.
yeah, but we listen to sales management teams. Yeah, we kind of sort of related to that, but I think you bring like this sense of fresh to the consultancy. I sometimes I feel that you are very close to clients too, and
Right.
that does make it different too. And
Yeah, yeah. The way we do the work, you're right. We try to be very close to the client.
Mhm,
So sometimes when people think about consulting, they are maybe thinking about kind of a traditional large consultancy, maybe a strategy consultancy where you
yeah,
come in and you gather a bunch of data, and then you make some PowerPoint decks and you present that information along with your recommendations back to the client. And we do very, very, very little of that. We are much more likely to be facilitating meetings in a new way, introducing something like the check-in round or the action meeting, helping an organization think about a better way to do strategy meetings where we actually create material and ideas that that is actually operationalized into the organization and not just come together once a year to look at to like read a bunch of PowerPoint decks and
yeah.
call it quits. So we really are trying to kind of be right down in the work with clients as much as possible. We sometimes talk about ourselves as like trainers. If you go to the gym and
Yeah.
you work with a trainer, the trainer is not just gonna like give you the plan and like walk away. The trainer is there like helping you, like showing you how to do the moves and like helping you correct your movements so that you don't hurt yourself. And maybe if they're really into it, they maybe do a couple reps to show you first. So like that's kind of how we think of ourselves.
Right. I love it that and that reminds me some posts that you were like that sometimes they say sometimes already it's a change organization and sometimes it's a stability organization.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was, oh man, how probably looks like opposite, but I don't know if you can explain.
Sure.
Probably it's part of the work too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think what I was reflecting on in that post is that the types of organizations we work with sometimes are experiencing kind of opposite ends of the same continuum. So one end
Mm,
of the continuum is the incredibly bureaucratic, very slow
mm,
organization where maybe we are more an agent of change. We are helping bring more energy and kind of break up that solidity that exists
mm,
within the organization. And sometimes, often with more kind of like startup organizations or just smaller organizations, they're more on the chaos end of the spectrum. And what they actually need is someone to help them design and implement some structure to bring some coherence to the chaos that they are experiencing. And the work of the Ready, like we can do both because the stuff that we have available to us, our kind of view of the world and organizations, allows us to kind of play within that continuum at either end. And
mm.
I would say most of my work is probably more so working with the really bureaucratic organizations that need some of that change, more of like the change help. But the other end is a lot of fun to work on too.
Nice. No, I mean, in reality, you see many of this stuff, like the bureaucracy that, I think that you help in the day by day, you contribute a lot to that. Or sometimes I think we are not that conscious how many time we lose or how many money and resources when we have like this bureaucracy at organizations. And
Yeah.
it's kind of invisible thing. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, and the thing is too is that, you probably hear us talk about the idea of the third way a lot.
Mm,
So it's not about helping a bureaucratic organization become chaotic. Like obviously nobody wants that, and it's not about the chaos becoming a bureaucratic organization, but there is a happy medium between those two sides that
mhm,
is kind of unique to each organization where you still have the some of the structure of the bureaucracy, but you still also have some of the energy and the complexity of the more chaotic side of things. And how can you channel those, bring those together in a way that is actually really productive and really energizing and really
mm.
healthy for people and for the organization?
Nice, nice, and that reminds me. I must confess, when you showed this new framework of the Ready, I kind of fan of the progressive music when I was little, John. I remember like the Rush thing, like the defining framework, and we see the sky, the sunshine, the twilight, the
Oh,
midnight.
the depth finding stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was, oh, what is this? But when I think you share like a PDF or something like that,
Yeah.
and and you explain like these different zones that organizations could be, like the sky, and sort of imagine the C-level or directors always like sometimes optimistic about, or they have the clarity of what the organization is going, but at the end this clarity is losing. So I don't know if you can explain a little bit this framework and
Sure.
how it works.
Yeah, yeah. So a little while ago, we introduced what we were calling the depth finding framework,
Yeah.
which is just another tool in our toolkit for understanding what is going on within
Yeah.
organizations. The OS Canvas was kind of our first foray into this, which we'll probably talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
But depth finding is just another way to start talking about systems thinking and complexity within organizations. And the way it is set up is basically as the metaphor is with layers in the ocean plus the sky. So as we were saying, the sky level, that is everything that is happening kind of external to an
Mhm.
organization, the market, competitors, various forces like that. and then working from the surface down. So at the surface level, you have what is called the sunshine zone. This is where the most sun penetrates the ocean. It is very visible. You can see a lot of the things here. So in an organization, this is the visible artifacts, your org charts, your job descriptions, those sorts of things that exist within your organization. As you keep going down and more of the sunlight is diffused and blocked, you then get into this zone called the twilight zone, where it's pretty murky. You can still see things a little bit. And the twilight zone is basically the how of how work gets done in an
Mhm.
organization. Our practices, our ways of working, our ways of doing things live in the twilight zone. And then if you keep going deeper in the ocean and in the organization, you hit the midnight zone, which
Mhm.
we describe as kind of the individual, private experience, emotional experience of people at work. And what the tool, what the framework is really good at is helping organizations kind of get a sense of where they may be over indexed. And spoiler alert, most organizations have so much focus on the sunshine zone
Mhm.
and very little in the twilight and the midnight zone. And the tool can also just it surfaces really interesting conversations about, well, what might be missing in our twilight zone based
Mhm.
on what's in our sunshine zone, or what midnight zone things are the sunshine zone artifacts kicking up for people, and how is that showing up in other parts of the system. So it's
Yeah.
been a lot of fun to introduce this and explore kind of the nuances and hear from others about how they've used it.
And I love it because when you see like this, you use these analogies or metaphors in a framework, people is I think it's more easy to understand, to be to find or try to find clarity. I don't know if you sort of this facilitate or you sort of, okay, let's put it on and people start like putting post-its on it, or you do something. Uh,
Yeah, we do things like that. Basically, kind of do a quick little introduction to the idea, and then we have whoever we're working with, whether it's a leader or a team, kind of pick a thing that is going on in their organization or a big challenge that they're experiencing, and we get them to just start generating things related to that topic, and then we map things into the various layers on the framework. We
Mhm.
often or sometimes we'll do some color coding. So things that are good, make them green. Things that are bad,
Wow.
make them red. And then we can see if there's any pattern showing up that way
Nice.
as well. Yeah, it seems to be a little bit more accessible than the OS Canvas for some
Yeah.
folks, because the OS Canvas can be overwhelming because there's 12 different fields, they're all blank. Like, where do you start? Whereas depth finding is just 4 layers, and I think it's you can kind of jump into it a little bit quicker.
Yeah, and how you now that you talk the operating system of those Canvas, I invite the audience to read that beautiful book, Brand New Work, and when
Yeah,
you
by
introduce
Aaron
it,
Dignan. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book. I'm a little bit biased though.
No, but it really does, and when you, as you say, there are 12 different parts of the organizations, but you can explain. I love the analogy that you do with the operating systems in general. But if you still use it with the finding, or how you say
Yeah,
goodbye to
we
it?
No, no, no. We didn't say goodbye to it. It's just another tool in the toolbox, and I think it's good at slightly different things. So,
Mhm.
just for folks who are maybe a little bit lost, what the OS canvas is, or the operating system canvas, is
Mhm.
a grid of 12 different boxes, and those boxes represent things like purpose, meetings,
Mhm.
workflow, information, compensation, mastery, structure, authority. I'm forgetting a couple, but you get the sense
Mhm.
of what I'm talking about here. And the idea
Mhm.
is that these are just areas of an organization where we can make decisions about things, where we have principles and values and practices and beliefs about what is good and bad for each of these. And we can use the OS Canvas to surface those things. We can use the OS Canvas to try to articulate how we want things to be, what it would look like and feel like if our meetings were serving us as well as they could or as well as they should. What it would
Mhm.
look like if authority was working and was as clear as it possibly could be. And
Mhm.
what this tool does is helps us really pull apart what can often be very opaque, very difficult
Mhm.
to see like what is going on in an organization. And when you start to map things onto the OS Canvas, you realize like, oh, we have so many different places where we could explore deeper. We could try things that would help solve some of our tensions. It just gives us a lot of surface area for
Mhm.
potential intervention.
Nice, nice, nice. And well, I love it when you sort of announce these different parts. Sometimes these not design organizations, many organizations work or start working because there's was like a market and the organization grows, but even founders are not like kind of conscious of these parts
Yeah,
or even this sort of okay, we don't make it explicit, they tease, but at the end, and
yeah,
I think it's a great exercise to map your organizations and see things
yeah.
that you can change at the end.
Yeah. Well, every organization has an operating system, whether or not
Mhm.
you've ever thought of it.
Mhm.
So, like you said, I think there are lots of organizations out there that have just inherited an operating system, and some of
Mhm.
the things that they've inherited from the founder or the founders or just early employees, and maybe some of those things continue to serve them really well, but
Mhm.
maybe some of those things aren't actually what we want to be doing, and that there are other ways of doing things, and we can take inspiration from other organizations or other research or things that we think up ourselves. And yeah, that's a huge part of our work, is basically helping organizations realize that they have inherited a lot of aspects of working either just unconsciously or
Mhm.
from the earliest days of the industrial era, when a lot of the initial assumptions about what it means to be a business, what it means to be an organization, and how you run them are just kind of unquestioningly accepted. And we think those things should be questioned. And sometimes we question them and we decide, what we were doing was fine. But
Mhm.
sometimes we question things and we realize we don't have to do it this way. We can do things this other way. And let's actually try to do that.
Yeah, and that reminds me of something sometimes when I heard, well, I know you guys before, I think like 2015 with thanks to our friend Bob Gower and
Yep.
so on.
Yep.
And I always sort of question myself the way we work to when but actually when Aaron published this book Break New Work makes me think a lot of this that nobody really teaches how to work, and
Yeah.
we sort of inherit this, as you said, this way of working or this mindset or something that we say, okay, it just work that way. But how do you learn or learn to work in a different way? I don't know. Probably you can put us an example or in the ready how you
Yeah.
change that work and the way we work, but also how we learn about working differently. That is not.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the MBAs and sometimes it's work that the traditional kind of work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's such a good point that I
Mhm.
think for most of us, we're never explicitly taught how to learn or how to work,
Mhm.
but we basically learn wherever we get hired, right? Like you come into an organization,
Mhm.
unless you're starting an organization, you're coming into a pre-existing organization, and chances are you just adopt whatever they've been doing.
Mhm.
So a lot of our work with organizations is this kind of unlearning of what you've been doing and
Mhm.
learning something else. So for us, what that means is a lot of experimentation. I think the only way
Mm.
to learn how to work is to actually experience it and have guidance as you are trying new things. Like with any new skill, learning it can be awkward. You're not great at it right away. If you're, for example, we have this idea that we largely borrow from Holacracy called an action meeting. It's called a tactical meeting in Holacracy. We've tweaked it a little bit. And all an action meeting is just a better way to run a recurring, like a staff meeting, basically, like
Mm.
a team that comes together on a regular basis to get really clear on their shared work, like what has happened since the last time we met. And then the key kind of design principle of it is that we build an agenda together rather than one person, like the boss, making an agenda and bringing it
Mm.
for the team. But within this structure of the action meeting, there are so many different and new behaviors to learn and
Mm.
behaviors to unlearn. So when we teach action meetings to teams for the first time, a very common pattern is that for a couple of weeks, basically nobody brings agenda items because it can feel weird if you've only ever worked in a team where like there's a very clear leader and they're the one who sets the agenda for what we're doing. You haven't really built the muscle of asking yourself, what do I need from this
Mm.
meeting? And can I actually verbalize it and describe it in a way and then say it out in the open to my teammates in a way where it's not overwhelming or too scary to do? And it takes a little while for people to ease into that. But once they have done it, once the team
Mm.
has learned an action meeting, very rarely have I ever seen a team decide to roll back to what they were doing before. Almost universally, at least 90% of the teams that I've worked with continue along using the action meeting because it is so much better. But
Yeah.
there is this kind of messy learning period where it feels not great and they're not sure if they want to keep doing it, and it's asking something of them that they've never had to do before. That can be scary.
Yeah, I love the phrase like nobody believes in change until they are changing, until they see that
Yeah.
actually like work different helps or yeah, or at that point of their change is working. And as you
Mhm.
said, getting back as the first part of the episode that you say like the ready evolves too, because I mean, probably when you started was
Oh yeah,
another
totally.
another thing, and now it's another different thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We have tried and abandoned so many different things, and it's true even for us too. Like even though
Mhm.
we try to be really progressive and really kind of eat our own dog food, as they say,
Mhm.
it can still be uncomfortable for us too when we are trying something new. But I do think it's one of those muscles that is, I think, pretty general, and the more that you use it, the more it can apply in other scenarios as well.
Nice, and that gets me into this. I think you too, because at the end you experiment a lot, and there is like this thing like do it by yourself trend, and the other one, the decentralized autonomous organization, that is many things like the blockchains and the self-management organizations and stuff. But when you are the consultant in that side, and people organizations say, okay, I can do it by myself, I
Yeah.
can learn by myself. How do you respond to that? And how do you say, okay, or you
Yeah.
actually need us? I don't know.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'll just say up front that as a member of a consulting company, I am biased toward thinking that organizations need consulting help. So
Mm.
just laying that out front so that's
Yeah.
not the elephant in the room. But I think
Mm.
we at the Ready, I feel very good about how we think about our clients and our role in those systems. So
Mhm.
one of the first things that I always say to clients when we start working together is that my goal is to truly make myself unnecessary as quickly as possible because we believe organizations never reach some sort of finished state it would be completely illogical for us to say, you have to keep us around and keep paying us until you reach some fictional, like final best state. Like that's not a thing. So
Mm,
what we're actually trying to do is get it so that you client organization can continuously sense and respond and change yourself as you
mm,
see fit for the environment that you're in. And there are some practices to learn. There are some structures that we can put in place. There's some guidance that we can give you. But ultimately, we want you to be to be able to do this work on your own. The challenge with doing it completely on your own from the beginning is
mm,
that I think one of them is that you often end up experimenting in unproductive ways.
mm,
So sometimes when people hear us say that we experiment, they assume we come in with like no agenda, no idea of what we're going to experiment with, and we're just going to like try things randomly. And that's
mm,
absolutely not what we do. We are not experimenting with just like completely brand new things all the time. What we're doing is experimenting with things that we know work or have worked in similar contexts. And
mm,
what we're experimenting with is whether this thing is going to work well in your context. And if it does, great. We're going to keep going down that path. We'll make some tweaks along the way and we'll help you do that. And if it doesn't work, then we've got other things that we know we have seen work that we can bring in and we can experiment with that. So in a lot of the DIY, the
mm,
do-it-yourself transformation that I've seen is that the experimentation teams are experimenting with things that have no chance of working for them or a real bad mismatch for their context that a partner like us or another firm like us could kind of help shortcut that aspect of it. The other thing that comes to mind for me is just the support that we can offer when things get tough. So
right,
these experiments, these new ways of doing things, a new way of meeting or a new way of doing strategy or a new way of doing feedback with humans means things are things are going to get messy at some point. So on the one hand, it can be nice to have like an external partner to kind of point at when things are messy. Like
mm,
we happily kind of take that role on. Like, yeah, like that's fine. Like
mm,
defect negative feelings onto us. We can play that role.
yeah,
And we can help coach teams and leaders through what can sometimes be a very fundamentally different way of showing up in an organization. The way you show up in a traditional top down command and control hierarchy as a leader is
mm,
very different from the type of organizations that we are trying to create, which are less top down, less command and control, not necessarily self managing. We're not turning all organizations self managing, but we
mm.
are bringing those principles forward in the ways that make sense in these organizations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, makes a lot of sense, and I love many aspects you mentioned it, and I completely agree that it's like it's an unfinished work, but we don't want to be always there. You know, want you to. I always kind of saying the example or the analogy when you start to learn to drive a bike. You know,
Yeah.
you suddenly you go by yourself and you enjoy and you have your own discoveries and start to know start to know you better, but you need some push at the beginning in order to get in the way and
Yeah.
keep your own rhythm or find your own rhythm. But
Yeah, to use that metaphor, I like that metaphor a lot.
mhm,
It's like not saying that anybody would do this, but it's like helping like here's a bike and here's how you sit on it. Don't sit on it backwards. Don't experiment with riding your bike backwards or riding it with your eyes closed or not wearing a helmet. We're gonna help you shortcut all of those horrible ideas and get you sitting on the bike the right way. You got the helmet on, and
mhm,
now you've got the push and you're moving in the right direction. There's something similar kind of happening within organizations as well. Like organizational change is hard enough as it is.
yeah,
So the stuff that can be easy, let's make it easy so that when we get to the hard stuff that we know is coming, we have the energy and the willingness to kind of lean into those hard parts.
yeah. I I love it, and I probably we can start, grabbing each other in the bike, see how comfortable you feel, and then okay, I can go by myself. I'm fine,
Yeah,
and and yeah, at the end also as consultant, that client become your community, and the client at the end
totally.
talks good by yourself, and help you in other stuff, and you can say, okay, probably this is a new thing that we find out. Probably you can try it or something like that, and
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
a relationship with the client at the end. Yeah.
Totally. Well, in the vast majority, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I do know the
Hmm.
majority of our new work can be traced back to previous work that we did, previous clients. It's all referrals from other organizations, which for me is just always I'm so heartened by that
Hmm.
because that is the proof to me that the work that we're doing is actually making things better. If someone is willing to introduce you to somebody else who
Yeah.
they want you to work with, that's just such a great sign. It's not like we're just like churning through organizations and we have to keep finding people who've never heard of us in order to convince them to work with us. It's like, no, people who have worked with us refer us to their other friends, and when they move jobs, tend to take us along to their new place.
That's amazing, and yeah, that's the best case scenario, I think, for
Yeah,
consultants, for clients and for the consultants.
for sure.
And when I see you here, and I know that you are also like introvert, sort of myself, and you do
Very much
exercise.
so. Yeah.
And
Two
and
introverts on a podcast. What are we doing? We're doing it wrong, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I used to, but I think we make it natural until, you find another introvert and say, okay, you are introvert too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm introvert. Okay, don't
Well, that's
speak.
because we're just doing a one-on-one conversation. Nobody
Yeah.
is listening to this right now. So it feels like, I mean, I am the type of introvert where I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations with people. A
Yeah.
couple of those per day. It's like that's the perfect amount of interaction that I need to have.
Yeah. And how do you do with, a facilitation or a workshop or something more massive?
I require time to recover afterward.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have come to, I think, have a little bit more understanding of the type of introversion that I have. And what I mean by that
Mhm.
is that left to my own devices, I would be very happy to sit at home by myself with a book and a notebook and not interact with anybody for days on end.
Well.
However, my life is not designed in that way. So I am able to kind of turn down the introvert part of me and turn on the extrovert part of me when I need to. And those sorts of situations are facilitation, basically.
Mhm.
So facilitating a workshop, facilitating a meeting, I turn up the extroversion part of me, and I truly enjoy doing that part of my job. The trade-off is that I need recovery after that. So it is very difficult to do lots and lots of back-to-back facilitations. That's why I could never be like a trainer as my
Yeah.
full-time job. Like I could not be in that facilitation mode like basically every day
Yeah.
for my career. And I learned this very early in my career before I knew anything about organizations when I was a teacher. And I realized very quickly, like, oh my goodness, when you're a high school teacher, you are in like pure performance extroversion mode, basically all day, every day. And there was not enough time for me to recover from that. And I was profoundly unhappy. So this work, at least the way we do it at the Ready and my roles that I hold, I get a nice combination of, one-on-one chats like this,
Yeah.
quiet working time for myself, and then occasionally these intense facilitation with large groups.
Lovely. And I kind of imagine the high school students. Yeah, it absorbs you too much energy and screaming and
Yeah,
yeah.
too much. And like I said, though, like in the moment, I loved being in front of the classroom. I loved teaching, like the actual
Mhm.
act of teaching.
Yeah.
And if I could teach like 2 or 3 days a week and like fully recover for the other two, I probably could have made a career out of it. But
Nice.
5 days and then just the weekend, I can't. I could. I my the math just didn't work out in terms of my energy.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm the same way. And running helps you in a sense, or you do it because you like running, but or you help to recharge of that energy.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different things. I mean, my favorite thing is just to be quiet with a book. Like I love to read. I have done and continue to do kind of some endurance sports very slowly. So running on my own, riding my bike, those types of things help me recover for sure.
Nice. And how do you do it now with the podcast with Rodney? I think Rodney is the
Yeah.
other way, isn't it? Is
Yeah, Rodney,
extroversion.
I think she would describe herself as an extrovert, although I don't know that for a fact. She may be kind of like me in that she can turn it on for particular moments.
Hmm.
But it's been great because I think like I said, like a podcast is just a one-on-one conversation. Like I have to put out of my mind all of the millions of people who I'm sure listen to this podcast
Hmm.
and just focus on the fact that it's just a conversation between me and you. And it's the same thing with at work with Reddy, with Rodney. It's just, once or every couple of weeks, hopping on a call with my friend Rodney to talk about some org design stuff. And then it doesn't drain me too much. Although I have definitely noticed that on days that we record podcast episodes,
Yeah,
I'm kind of useless the rest of the day.
really.
So it does take a lot out of me to show up and do that. Luckily, this conversation it's near the end of my day anyway, so I don't have to go do anything afterward. But sometimes we record our podcast in the morning, and
Oh,
then I realize like, ah, crap, I've got meetings all afternoon. This is going to be rough. So I'm trying to be a little bit more deliberate about how I design the days where I have to record a podcast episode.
nice. It's a good thing. I think at the end, I mean, I have nothing against the extrovert. I love it. But
Yeah.
I think to be an introvert forces you to know you better, because the
Mm,
world out there is it's noisy and have this chaos and organizations too, but as you say, your limits, and by yourself every time you expose to the world. So I think we have
yeah.
like this necessity of being by ourselves, but also I think we know better each other,
Yeah. I spent a lot of time when I was younger kind of rueing the fact that I'm an introvert and wishing that I was an extrovert. And there are still times where I feel like my life would be simpler if I was an extrovert.
Hmm.
Um, my wife is an extreme extrovert, so I kind of like live through her sometimes. But as I have gotten older, I've realized that there are aspects of being an introvert that I think are really beneficial for this type of work, and
Yeah.
I'm choosing to focus more on that.
Oh, lovely, lovely. And well, we're gonna put here in the links to the podcast, but I think it's a lovely one. I don't know if you can
Thank
share
you.
some story of it. How do you feel after Aaron Dickman wasn't more the co-host and you suddenly
Yeah.
you get to the show?
Yeah, so Aaron, our founder, Aaron Dignan, who the author of Brave New Work, he and Rodney Evans, my co-host, have done the podcast for years before I joined. So it's been about a year and a half. I don't
Mhm.
exactly remember when I took over Aaron's spot. So yeah, I mean, first of all, it's been a lot of fun. I have really enjoyed stepping into a podcast that already had a listener base, and
Yeah.
that has also made it less so now, but more so in the beginning, really stressful. There's definitely an element of kind of imposter syndrome when you are taking over the co-host spot from the founder of the company and the author of the book. Like, I think, and here's the story that I'll share about that. I think I made an offhand comment in one of the episodes. I think I called myself like a I don't remember exactly, but I made some sort of self-deprecating remark about how I wasn't Aaron. I think I called
Mhm.
myself like a cut rate Aaron or like a budget Aaron or something like that. And he sent me a text when he heard that episode, and he said, you're doing a great job. You're not a cut rate Aaron. You're
Mhm.
bringing like such good like energy to the show,
Nice.
and that helped like calm me down. Like he and I obviously have a very good relationship, and the response from listeners, at least to my face, have been good. I'm sure there are people who dropped off when Aaron was no longer on it, but I think Rodney and I have kind of honored what the show had been while
Yeah.
putting our own spin on it, and that was the thing. that when we were talking about me taking over Aaron's spot, I didn't want to just keep making the show that they had been making. I wanted to make it our own thing. So we've really tried to focus in on, what is the way we can approach these topics that is slightly different than the way Aaron and Rodney have been doing it.
Yeah, I feel you have a goodbye together,
Yeah,
and I love that you make it pretty real and you
yeah,
identify a lot what actually what's happening at works or used to happen.
yeah.
And that is and this beautiful insights. I'm sure that the audience enjoyed it, and it's one of my faves really, and I
Thank
love
you.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. What we try to do, my contribution was the idea that I wanted our each episode to be about a very specific pattern. So we try to start every
Yes.
episode describing a pattern or an anti-pattern that we see happening within an organization. And then
Mhm.
we spend the first two-thirds of the episode kind of really trying to understand why this pattern exists, what's going on in the organization, and then we close the episode with some like really specific things that people could try instead if they are finding themselves experiencing that pattern. And I think
Yes.
it's been fun. I think when you hear an episode where we're describing a pattern that you are currently dealing with, it feels like we are talking directly to you.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel it that way. I think you made it happen, and
Okay, cool. Thanks.
and it's funny to have this. Uh, we can the listeners we can notice that you have a good relationship, that have
Yeah,
each other, and
yeah,
that's good. And so
yeah. We've been working
different
together for a long
personalities.
time,
Yeah,
so and
and
very different personalities. You're right. Yeah,
yeah. Well, I think it's a good place to do a wrap up. I think we have many talk about many good topics and know
yeah.
you better. And we always kind of make this check out that this kind of the image of the future, or the what is the future of work that you would like to happen in a professional or personal way. What is your like best case scenario?
Whew, that's a big checkout question, and I so where my head is going, and I've actually appreciated that we haven't talked about like AI at all.
Mhm.
But it's
Yeah.
also the like elephant in the room for every conversation about the future of work and future of
Mhm.
organizations. So there's something in this best case scenario where we are able to navigate this technological kind of revolution or evolution, depending on how you perceive
Mhm.
AI, in a way that that kind of honors the humans both in society but also in organizations. So the not best case scenario in my mind, as
Mhm.
someone who loves organizations and loves the potential for work to be a way that people find meaning and contribute to the world, is that AI just does it all for us. I hope we can find an interesting kind of AI human hybrid that allows people to get those needs met, around meaning, around feeling like they're part of a community,
Mhm.
around like they're contributing to something, while removing the worst parts of organizations,
Nice.
the jobs nobody wants to do, the tasks that nobody wants to do. Is there a world where we can actually use this to make things better? That's my hope for best case scenario.
Sounds great, and was I think some intentionally to don't talk about AI for a while.
Hey, I ruined it. I apologize.
No, it's okay. It was, yeah. I think that the work is much more than that, and we enjoy what we do. And thanks Sam to be here in the show.
Wait, you have to do the closing round too. What's your checkout answer to that?
Oh, check it out, the answer. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. You're the first one that do it. I mean, probably, I know. It's a hard question now that I'm the size of the interview. But yeah, I mean, probably that people can be more normal at the work. One of the things that always love with you guys, August, the Ready, all these kind of people, and also with people we do also foresight stuff, strategic foresight,
Mhm.
and we select are very easygoing people,
Mm,
are very uncomplicated, and I always, during these little years of consultants, I have learned that people that actually want to change or have an organizational change, they used to have an internal change before,
mm,
something
mm,
happens in their life or, that making them more like comprehensive, more like
mm.
uncomplicated, more easygoing, more closed people. And I will really love to happen that. No? And probably is something that, as we said before, the introverts kind of accept ourselves as we are, and it's okay, we can handle with this, and it's okay, are my conditions, and I
Sure.
accept myself and my limitations. And the special thing that if people accept themselves and try to be more within themselves, I think they can bring better to the what they do outside. So if
Cool.
we sort of uncomplicated the work or be more normal,
Great.
will be awesome for me. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for doing the closing round too. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam, to be here to have this nice conversation, and hope to see you someday soon. At
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a great conversation.
Thank you, Sam. So, ya sabes que Reventando los Podcasts es dirigido por un servidor Ruiz Salas y producido por Polymath, una red de consultores que co-creamos organizaciones ambidiestras. Pues voy a reventar algo. Que estés muy bien. Chao. Chao, Sam. Thank you.
Take care.